15 years ago, my husband and I moved to upstate New York, and we started attending a small Episcopal church in our town. And while we were there, we went through about 4 different priests. So the first priest was this really cerebral kind of guy. He would tell these very complicated sermons. He'd start with the reading of the week, and he'd go to some really obscure philosopher, and then he'd go off left and right, and before you knew it, you're completely lost about what he was supposed to be talking about. And it was always like, this is too much for an early Sunday morning after a late Saturday night. Well, he left and went to another church, and they brought in what you call an interim priest until they found the new one for the job. And this guy was 360 degrees different. He would start his sermon with a small joke about the Red Sox and the Yankees, and then he would say, love one another. And that was it, okay? Well, that was great for a few weeks, right? But that gets a little bit old, as important as it is to love one another. So they finally hired another priest, the full-time priest, and he was great. Very intellectual, but he told a great sermon. He would always wrap in something, going on in the world at that time, so you could say, oh, that's how my life relates to the Bible with what's going on in the world. It always made great sense, and he had a great sense of humor. But he retired after 2 years, so we got our 4th priest. Well, this priest was a woman. Episcopalians do that, right? So they hired a woman. I was kind of excited. I thought this could be great, a whole other attitude, someone I could relate to. And she arrived at our church, and she had kind of curly, kinky hair like I did. And I said, that's cool. She had a really dry sense of humor. I really enjoyed that, too. And one of her first sermons, she actually put a Barbie doll out on the pulpit and called her Priest Barbie. And it turns out she and her friend in her seminary started dressing up as Barbie during school in different robes. If it was Lent, they had a certain color robe on, and if it was, Advent, it was a different color robe. And I thought, well, that's pretty cool for a priest, right? Well, it was good for a while, and I kept thinking, if this woman wasn't a priest, I might actually want her to be my best friend, because I liked her humor, I thought she was great. But there's 2 people you really don't want to be your best friend. One is probably your priest, because they know your deepest, darkest secrets, right? And the other is probably your gynecologist, because they know your deepest, darkest secrets too, right? So I thought if she wasn't a priest, I could be friends with her, but that color, it makes me nervous. I feel guilty whenever I'm around it, and I just thought she's just going to be my priest, just my priest. So she's with us several months, and next thing she knows, each sermon, she'll start off with whatever the reading was, but about 3/4 of the way through, she starts making these weird movie references to relate to the reading. Like she'd be saying, and when Jesus gathered all his disciples together, much like Chevy Chase in National Lampoon Vacation, I'm like, what? Did you just hear that? I mean, I'm looking around, we're all looking at each other like, well, okay, whatever. Maybe she's just seen it for a wake, right? So I'm sure it was a one-time thing. Well, no. Every week, about 3/4 of the way through the sermon, she'd come up with another movie reference. Like the one time when she said, well, Job had a lot of ordeals, just like Ralph Macchia in The Karate Kid, right? And you're like, wait a second, this is just weird. And these aren't even good movie references, right? And I'm thinking, is this some new Episcopalian playbook thing where they say, you need to find cultural things, they're happening now so your congregation will understand and relate to what you're saying. And I'm thinking, this is just strange. And I'm thinking, these are the kind of movies, again, they're not even good movies, that you're, on a Saturday, when you've got something important to do, and you're like, well, if I just want to procrastinate for a little bit, I'll watch a movie like Fast Times at Ridgemont High is on, and who knows when that's going to be on again, right? So I'm picturing my priest sitting on her sofa under a comfortable blanket, watching a movie and going, oh, I could use that in my sermon tomorrow. So anyways, I'm telling you, this went on every week to the point where we were taking bets. What movie would it be this week? And I was so sick and tired of having movie references in my sermon. Well, thank goodness. Not long after that, my husband and I moved to downstate New York, and I thought, thank goodness I'm away from these crazy movie sermons. And we started looking for another church. Well, we found another small Episcopalian church, went to it one Sunday. It was very nice. Everyone was very friendly when we walked in the door. They smiled at us. We took a seat in the 3rd pew on the right, and no one gave us a hard time about it, which Episcopalians are kind of weird about where you sit. And we sit down, I look around, it's got pretty stained glass windows, the music's kind of nice. I'm thinking, well, maybe this could be my new home, and maybe they won't put movies in the sermons every Sunday. Well, the priest starts talking. He's a young man, he's got a really friendly face and a deep voice, and I'm thinking, he's got a nice voice, and that helps, I like to listen to this. And he started his sermon very nicely. He actually told a personal anecdote that kind of went with the reading, and I thought, well, that's nice. I feel closer to him already, and I'm thinking, this is good. And then he talked about a world event, again, tying in the Bible and things going on in the world. And I thought, this is really kind of good. maybe this is the one. And I'm waiting though, because the 3/4 mark is coming up, right, where that movie gets inserted each time. And we get to that point, and he doesn't say anything about a movie. And I'm starting to get pretty worked up, pretty excited. And then I can tell he's coming to the end of the sermon. His voice kind of rises up a little bit, and he's starting to bring us all in, bring the message home. And then he says in such a voice, he said, and Jesus said to his disciples, just like Shania Twain in my favorite country song. And that's when I just blacked out, ran for the back door faster than that collection plate could be passed around, and I headed for the nearest Methodist church. Thank you.